that's when I want to speak to a live person. That's when I want that live person to be available.
We got to give people the ability to understand customers so they can focus on the more complex, important things.
I'm kind of not going to answer that. I think it's highly situational of like where it makes sense, the leader that it makes sense, like who truly believes it, who's closest to the customer, all of that jazz.
Real talk backed up with real action. This is GTM News Desk.
I'm Nick Bennett.
And I'm Mark Hillens.
Let's see what's trending. This is a good one. I'm Nick Bennett. I am here with the incredible Mark Hillens. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You have a different level of energy today, Nick.
Honestly, I'm drinking a coffee and I put too much sugar in it and it's getting me a little edgy.
Be careful with that sugar and that caffeine. You know, that's a dangerous combo.
Absolutely. Well, today we have an amazing episode. We have a fantastic guest. Gianna, who's one of the co-founders over at Champion, will be joining us a little bit later in the episode. But we have some interesting headlines today, and I'm going to kick things off with headline number one here. But for anyone that doesn't know Zendesk out there, they're a massive, I feel like they're one of those 500-pound gorillas. I feel like so many companies use them, but they just recently unveiled an AI-powered solution that's going to help elevate the CX side of things. And so when I was reading this, I feel like I contact so much like customer support, and this is a weird side tangent, but I'm curious on your thoughts on this. Like if I have a software that I purchase or something and there's no live chat support, it gets me so angry because I hate calling people. I hate talking on the phone, and I would much rather just live chat with someone. And HubSpot has an incredible live chat support, but I'm just curious, what do you think on live chat? Are you pro or con?
Absolutely need to do it. I love it. And the reason we're talking about this story, and I got one slightly related to customer success, is because we're going to talk a lot about customer-led growth, this new channel with Gianna. I definitely agree with you, Nick. I think you need to invest in live chat plus a chatbot. And for most companies, when you get to this point in scale and size, you need email and you even need phone for probably your most important customers or customers that buy that type of service level. But yes, so Zendesk, it sounds like they have created, no surprise, Nick, an AI something. But yeah, tell us more about why you think this is a newsworthy story.
So it's just, again, I feel like everyone's creating an AI something, but the way that I thought about it, and one of the most, I guess, there's really two big things that came to me, actually three when I think about it from a pro perspective. So the efficiency gain. So they're using AI to handle routine, repetitive tasks. And if you think about it, I'm sure, as a purchaser yourself and others, there's things that us and a million other people have questions for. And it's I think of just a chatbot. It's you ask something, it's able to use AI, it's able to get you that answer. I don't need to speak to a live person, but what it does is it frees up those humans to focus on more of the complex, the meaningful interactions with customers. And those are the conversations that are ultimately going to hopefully drive more retention, because at the end of the day, we all probably have complex things that pop up in, time to time, and AI might not be able to solve that. But that's when I want to speak to a live person. That's when I want that live person to be available. That's when I want this to be scalable, because their AI feature works across multiple channels. It works across chat, it works across email, it even works across voice. So as Zendesk, obviously they're a huge company, lots of big companies use them. And so when you have larger volumes of customer requests, it makes it so you don't have to worry about losing the quality. And any customer that's out there, any business that's out there, and I think this could even, be B2C, B2B, whatever, if you have high volumes of customer inquiries, but you want to strike the balance between automation and personal touch, because again, you should never get rid of the personal touch, people first. But there is times where you need the automation. And I think what their new product does is it blends that balance incredibly well. But you don't want to be over resilient on AI, which I think goes back to hey, if you're getting rid of that less personalized, touch point, it turns people off. They might churn, and it's just at the end of the day, I'm not even talking to a real company. I'm talking to AI. So I think from what I've read, they seem to be able to blend that nice component together. And I'm interested to see kind of how that continues.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to solve people's problems. People bought something to help them solve a problem.
Yep.
As they use that thing, whatever it is, problems probably will come up, questions will come up, and you need to delight them as fast as you can by answering that problem as quickly as you can, addressing it, answering it, and making sure it doesn't happen again. So using a combination of everything you just said is, for most companies, once you get to this critical number of customers, could be 50, could be 100, could be more than that, like you need to have a multifaceted customer support and customer success motion, which gets into the second headline story, another AI-ish centric story. But my good friend Elias from my days at Drift and HubSpot has just announced his new company called Agency. And guess what? He's focused on empowering and helping customer success folks, customer success managers, the customer success function be better at serving their customers, because there is a shit ton, Nick, as you know, demands on customer success people. Like, they got to be like part salesperson, part support person, part like change management agent, part product expert. It's probably, because I was a CSM for 2 years and when I was at HubSpot, and it is a very demanding job. So to have a company and having someone who comes from a marketing background, a sales background like Elias, help and think about CSMs in a new way, using something called agentic systems. I'm sure we're going to talk more and more about agentic AI, agentic systems in the future GTM shows that we do. The fact is, though, like, we need to give people time back and need to give them a superpower, so that, to the comment I made right before the second headline was introduced, we got to give people the ability to, and you said it well, to understand customers so they can focus on the more complex, important things and do surprise and delight moments versus the rote routine tasks. A lot of the tech I've been seeing is about marketing, sales, RevOps, but like, we're missing this customer success piece. So I'm very excited for this company, Agency. I think it's going to eventually, my gut tells me it's eventually going to inform a lot of marketing and sales things, because the one thing that also most go-to-market teams haven't unlocked is all of the insights coming from the customer side of the house, and using that as it relates to the marketing and sales, pre-sales side of the house. I still think there's a big divide on the data and the insights being shared there. And I feel like AI and agents and co-pilots will be the bridge that gets us much closer to getting those two core functions united.
I love that. Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement. Honestly, we should get him on the show at some point, because I would love to dig more and like learn more about this myself.
I agree. We will definitely get Elias on the show. I will send him this snippet and recording me. Elias, you have to come on the show. I saw him just the other day at an event, and he's all fired up. I've never seen him this fired up in a long time. And what he's really focused on is giving people more agency. And so agency is a very interesting word. It means a lot of different things, like most words do. But he wants to, enable, empower people to focus more on the most important things that are truly solving for the customer. I love it. Which, again, if you take that approach and you take the approach of what Zendesk is doing, it's going to fuel a customer-led growth strategy, a true growth channel that should be used across your entire business, across the entire customer journey. And that is what we're going to be talking to Gianna about right now in segment number 3. Buckle up, everyone. Segment 3, Nick. We got a special one for you folks today. This is going to be a fiery conversation.
That's a lot of pressure.
A lot. No, it's not. No, it's not. We were preparing for this conversation with Gianna right before this. Again, Gianna, great to have you on the show. Let's have you just do a quick intro. Of course, you're a champion, one of the co-founders, but just let the audience know a bit more about yourself. You just told us you have a mouth of a truck driver.
Giving away my secrets already. Thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks a lot. I do, but only when I talk about work, which is the weird part. Like, in my personal life, I don't curse very much. Don't know what it is about this fucking industry that makes me curse, but it sure does. Been in it for about 25 years, went from services to product side, lots of learns along the way. But my background, the lens in which I view things is really through that go-to-market flywheel. Started out in sales ops and really sales, and then to sales ops, worked my way up to COO. My specialty is scaling 5 to 100. This is my first time doing 0 to 1. So floundering a little bit, lots of success along the way as well, but really learning that motion, which has been a lot of fun. So everything from SDR, BDR through customer success is within my umbrella. And so I've been having a lot of fun in my career, really just using common sense and building from there.
So as you folks heard, this conversation is all about a somewhat new concept, a new growth strategy called customer-led growth. And Gianna's actually at an event today as we record this episode related to this, if you will. Customer marketing, customer advocacy, you probably know those terms, but customer-led growth, somewhat new. So how do you define this? And what's the vibe on the ground floor at this event, Gianna?
The vibe on the ground floor is, how do we get bigger seat at the table? How do we show the value of what this drives and what this brings to the business? And I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. To answer your question on customer-led growth, my definition is that it's a channel. It's a revenue-generating channel, just like inbound, outbound, partnerships. There needs to be a customer channel, and who's in charge of that should most likely be customer marketing to bring it all together, who they're impacting, right? Our sales, BDRs, so thinking about new ARR, helping to influence deals already in the pipeline, in addition to customer success and aligning on their targets around NRR. So expansion, retention measures, upsells, renewals, all that good stuff.
So you feel this is something that needs to be talked about at the executive C level. This is something that needs a real investment thesis that's tracked, that then gets used across the go-to-market teams, if you will.
Absolutely. But what's crazy is that this is not new, right? You think about old school sales methodologies before technology was really, driving BDRs to make God knows how many phone calls, and, AI is taking over and all of this. Like, think about the old school sales mentality, right? And services is still like this. And this is what I learned in my services days, 12 years within tech services. You hunt, you kill, you nurture. Right? You're finding your own deals, you're building those relationships, and you're maintaining that relationship. And you're asking a really simple question. Who else would benefit from my services? Would you mind giving me an introduction? Customer-led sales has been around there. Yeah, Nick, tell me.
Well, yeah. Nick comes from this space. He knows some of this. He was a customer marketer, field marketer. Yeah, what's your point of view, Nick?
I agree 100%. And it's interesting. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it depends on the industry. Like, I was always in MarTech or sales tech. And when I was in MarTech, it was a lot easier being a customer marketer that's supporting, obviously, retention, but also supporting ARR growth, because it's like, I use the product. So I could talk from both sides of it. I could also explain to customers, hey, this is how I'm using the product every single day. This is how we actually decrease time to value with the customers that we have, because I was just sharing my playbook, my stuff that I worked on every single day. And it was like, CS could give you that information, but when you hear it from another marketer, it makes it a lot more real. And then I could also hop on a prospect call and help the sales team accelerate deals through different types of campaigns and activations, again, because of the way that I used it. And I'm curious on your thoughts on who do you think customer marketing should roll up to? And the reason that I asked that is because when I was at a previous company, Alice, customer marketing, who was me, rolled up to our VP of CS. And it was the first time that I've actually seen that breakout where customer marketing, I don't want to say they were on an island, but kind of were. In your experience, have you seen better success having a customer marketer just be part of the marketing team, roll up to, whoever, or have it more be integrated into the CS team?
Oh, that's such a great question. And my overall philosophy in business is there's never a one size fits all. And I hate absolute statements. So Nick, I'm kind of not going to answer that. I think it's highly situational of where it makes sense, the leader that it makes sense, who truly believes it, who's closest to the customer, all of that jazz. Now, I am seeing a trend in that many companies are moving more towards the CCO and having this fit under the CCO. Regardless, there needs to be really tight alignment and having a shared goal on the impact that should be driven from the customer marketing team. I would say that I've seen HubSpot, for example, their community now rolls into the customer success org. I'm starting to see that happen. And so potentially within customer marketing, there's like advocacy, there's community. So there are different facets that might roll into different teams and departments. And I think that that's where it can get a little bit confusing also. So I would say I've also seen it roll under product marketing, which I think is really interesting. I'd love to see it really roll into the CRO and have super, super tight alignment with the CCO. It's a growth strategy. CRO should own this.
Yes. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think some of those earlier stage companies, they might not have a CRO in place yet, but I mean, I'm 100% on board. And it's interesting. I used to also work for company Clary, where we did have a CRO, and everything kind of from a revenue and even just retention, AR, all that rolled under the CRO. And I feel like it was such a better process for everything from start to finish. The customers had a better experience, the prospects had a better experience, and like we built a community. Granted, I wasn't in customer marketing there. I did build the customer community while I was there and launch it. And it was one of the most successful things that they had that ultimately turned into a prospect community as well. But
so basically, Nick, you're just fabulous, right? In the programs you put in place.
Just patting yourself on the back continuously.
Totally. Great job, Nick. Great job.
Hold on, I'm going to disagree. As a marketing leader, former marketing leader, I do not want to report to the CRO. Nothing against people who are CROs. Unless the CRO comes from a marketing background, I am not reporting to you. Hard stop. So I would report to, though, the CCO. I think the Chief Customer Officer should be someone who has the CRO, the CMO, report into them. It could be the Chief Operating Officer, but again, I think the Chief Operating Officer will come from a different background than the Chief Customer Officer. And this gets into the next question, which is like, what are some of the mistake or the biggest mistake you see marketers making when it comes to partnering with customers to drive growth? Because depending on like your experience and the stories you've seen unfold in your career, I think that's going to obviously bias you, put you into potentially a path that could be a big mistake. Like CRO with marketing reporting to it, in my opinion, is a big mistake.
Okay. And again, like that's where absolute statements are really hard. And so you've got to find like the right one for the right org. And
I give a caveat. The CRO has a marketing background.
Okay.
I give a caveat.
Fair. And I see it, right? Like that also makes sense. It's a tough one. But number one mistake, I think it's really about not aligning to the business outcomes. Right. And I think this is what's so critical is that I'm still seeing that many programs are running as a point solution as opposed to one cohesive approach. Again, if you're viewing it as customer-led growth is a channel and it's not about a reference program, a referral program, all of the different components that go in, case studies, et cetera. And instead of how are we going to use that customer voice at the right point, that's what will make a really, really great program. And so thinking about how you align to the business outcomes, right? So think about a reference program, for example. We have a client who just put this in place and they're doing a fantastic job kind of programmatically thinking about how they're going to roll this out. But they're aligning to the business outcomes of we want to help increase win rates and we want to help decrease time to close, right? Those are two very strong metrics that you could look at when putting a reference program in place. And what I've seen is a lot of companies might put too strict of parameters. We're only going to give references for deals at this stage. We're only going to allow X, Y, and Z. When you do that, you're not thinking about what you're actually trying to drive and all of those situational moments that happen in sales that might actually help tick the needle. And so instead, you want to think about how can we proactively give references because the deals that are going to close regardless. So how can we help close those deals that are really challenging, that traditionally are not getting references because you don't want to ruin or you don't want to take up that spot from that cherished customer. So it's really thinking about increasing the pool of referenceable customers and then using it in those tougher situations. And that's where you're really going to get to those business outcomes.
Kind of fits into the next question, right, Nick? I mean, it's like the ways in which you think about customer-led growth driving both impact on the pre-sale motion versus a post-sale motion.
I love this, right? Because that's what customer marketing should be doing. Like I think about customer marketing as like the collective tissue, right? Between sales and between customer success, right? And so the impact that they need to have is not only generating ARR growth, but also the retention and expansion measure. And so how they do that is really thinking about what are some of the indicators that are learned through these relationships, these specialized relationships that you're building. How do you then aggregate that user level data up to understand the impact that it's having on each of, the logos that you have in your portfolio? Like, I feel so badly for customer success because they have these books of business, the portfolios that are like 300 customers. It's impossible for them to have the right meaningful relationships and truly understand. And this is the layer in which customer marketing can come in, build those relationships, and really assist customer success to say, here are your champions. And if you're tracking job changes, a lot of, and this is like where that new biz comes into play to your question of like, many companies are using job changes to think about how do we build pipeline, but how are you actually thinking about it in the sense of, does this put your current logo at risk that they just moved away from? Is that your key stakeholder that you're now going to have to re-break into that account for that renewal? What does this mean? And so there are so many motions that are going to help assist both from the influence factor of references being able to assist in closing, right? That's the new ARR, increasing the win rate. There's referrals, right? And so the referral factor is going to increase your pipeline. And then as mentioned, there are all of these factors that will help you understand renewal and expansion possibilities and who's truly at risk by, again, simply tracking job changes. Right? That's one example.
I think you bring up a good point there, and you use the word influence. And, as someone that was a field marketer before I was a customer marketer, and I did ABM as well, field marketers, like the way that we measured a lot of the stuff that we did was through influence. Like we weren't sourcing the pipeline, but we were influencing a lot of things through the campaigns and activations that we did. And I think a customer marketer is in a similar boat where, they're obviously not sourcing the retention, opportunities of these, but they are influencing them through the activities that they do. And you need someone that understands how, as a marketer, you can leverage yourself to influence deals that are in, pipeline for renewal. And even, I guess, as new business as well. If you ask a lot of marketers that question, like they don't would you rather source or would you rather influence in like the campaigns that you do? Like it's you'll get an interesting reply from a lot of them. And I'm just curious on your thoughts on that piece.
Yeah, I think what's easy about source is that there's revenue impact associated with it from a very direct sense. Like I sourced this closed, I drove this revenue. Right? That speaks to a CFO, that speaks to C-level. What's difficult about influence, right, is that everyone's trying to do an attribution model. I hate attribution. I hate it. Like, who cares, right? Like, who cares? All that matters is, right, we're swarming this and we're closing it, or we're upselling it, or we're retaining it. And we know that these are all of the things that contributed to that. And then you could do some modeling from there to truly understand that impact. But that's what influence is. We know that these measures have helped come to X outcome, right? And so I think it's equally important. And that's really, where I love that Champion is going, is that we're showing that influence so that you can have a revenue trigger there similar to source, so that you can really start to show that revenue stamp that you're putting on the business in a far easier way than, let's say, like 5% attribution, a lot of these arbitrary percentages that have, just really kind of been made up.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we've got one more question before we move over to the exclusive piece. But if you had to think about a people-first version of customer-led growth, like what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think super simple. It's aligning with the customer journey, right? You have to know the right ask, the right time to the right person in the right moment. So when you think about, where they are, if you've just onboarded, great time to ask for a testimonial. You're not going to clearly ask for a case study. Thinking about, when the right time to ask for an introduction to, someone within their network. Also potentially great at onboarding. So it's really thinking about where they are in their own customer journey for your your organization and aligning your different programs to the key milestones that they're reaching.
We need to talk a lot more about the education piece, the education that has to happen at the CFO level, the C level, in this exclusive content that's about to come if you subscribe to the TAC Network. Because as I was listening to the last 5 minutes, I feel like that is the issue. The people don't know across the marketing team, the sales team, but at the C level, how customer-led growth works, how should it be implemented across these go-to-market teams. And I know you have a lot of tactical tips on how to do that, Gianna. So everyone, subscribe to the network if you haven't. Get the exclusive content, and we'll talk to Gianna in just another minute. Thanks for joining us on this episode of GTM News Desk, presented by the TAC Network. To hear our full conversation with our guest today, head to the link in the show notes to subscribe to the TAC Network. Until next time, I'm Mark Killens.
And I'm Nick Bennett. Keep it people first, everybody.